Hey everyone, I'm Martin Willis, your host, and yes, I'm on my boat. We're going to call this the showboat tonight. Um, hey, I have a 5G hotspot. I have great internet on my boat I discovered the other day. So here I am. And thunderstorms just went past us. A lobster boat went by a few minutes ago, knocked over the camera. So I'm going to keep my eyes out for that. But those guys get up like at 3 a.m. They're usually done long before now. It always depends on the tides and all that. Here we are off the coast of Maine. And the guest this evening I'm pretty excited about is Col Lehto, and he is a former, he's a retired Lieutenant Colonel F-16 pilot from the Air Force. Those are the single-seat planes. I believe they are jets. And he has used a lot of this equipment that the debunkers are talking about in the videos. And he comes up with some real logical answers why their debunking is wrong. So he debunks the debunkers. I know he and Mick West had a lot of back and forth going on over some videos. And actually, I think they both admitted that they were wrong about certain things. So it should be a fascinating show tonight. I'm really excited for it. The blog this week is a former blogger wrote, Mike Lauk. He wrote this blog about the Allagash incident, which happened up in Maine back in 1976, I think it was. That's a great blog. Check it out. So I want to thank everyone that helps out with the show. Anyone can do that. That information's over at podcastufo.com. And we're going to do the show same as always. I'm not sure how long my battery's going to last. I've been trying to figure out how to do that on my computer, but don't worry, we got it all figured out. If I have to jump over to my phone, I'll do that. And I hear a lobster boat going by. I thought they were all done for the day. So I got to get ready for the waves here in a little while. But anyway, the guest tonight again is Col Lehto. He'll be coming right up. Jeff Bezos went to space today or yesterday, I think it was, successfully there and back. So money can buy you about anything, I guess. But that's another fascinating step in space, in space travel, the future of it, and what you can do, I guess, if you have a ton of money. Anyway, that's it for my blabbing. I'm going to add Chris right now. Hi, Chris. Welcome to the show.
Hi, great to be here.
Yeah, I've been watching your videos, and I was really excited. Someone sent me a link right away when the first one you did went up, and you got a lot of views right away, and you made a lot of sense. And so, and you're looking pretty deeply into this topic. And the last video you posted today, you said you're going to do a deep dive into the Nimitz case. I'm pretty excited for your work on that. But let's hear a little bit about your background and what made you kind of take the dive into looking at this.
Into UAPs. So actually, I just fell into it, to be honest. Really, when I saw that video, I made the first video, it was I think end of May, and it was just looking at those three videos, the FLIR, GOFAST, and Gimbal. And when they said it was legit, declassified, I watched it a few months. Actually, I watched it a few months previous to that, and it like wouldn't. My brain wouldn't let me process it. It's kind of it took a few months, and then I watched it the end of May, and that's really kind of when you see me even consider, UAPs in general, or really anything supernatural. I've always grown up anti-supernatural, if you will. I grew up in Houston, Texas. I went to the Air Force Academy. So right out of high school, I applied. I honestly didn't think they would let me in, to be honest. But they did, actually. They let me in the Air Force Academy, and everybody said it's this amazing opportunity. And, I was kind of a screw up. I felt like I was going to be up to no good, I guess, after high school. And so I just wanted some discipline, and it sounded like something non-standard. Growing up in Houston, I just look around in the suburbs of Houston, and I would just see everyone's life, and I just remember thinking, I just don't want that. I don't want, I don't want the suburban house and, the 9-to-5 job and the Sunday, going to church and all that stuff. So for me, it was I just wanted I wanted discipline. I wanted something with meaning and something different, I guess. And
Now, did
the
you
Air
have a
Force Academy.
private? Did you have a private pilot's license ahead of that, or do any flying ahead of that?
Nothing.
Wow.
You know, so really, I had a buddy in my physics class in senior year of high school. Will Mathis. He's a commander. I don't know if I should name him. You know, if his names are wrong. But live TV. So he's the commander, I think now, actually, of a Hornet Squadron. I haven't talked to him in years. You know, we basically lost touch after high school. But every day in physics class, he would talk to me. You know, we were good buddies, and he would talk about his dad went to Annapolis, and he, you know, I think he was a pilot. I'm not sure if he's a fighter pilot actually. But he explained the whole career, the lifestyle. You know, he explained the pension. You can fly these, you know, jets. You can live this, you know, this lifestyle. And by the way, school's free. It's an amazing education. Everything, you know. So I was like, sure, I'll apply. You know, I threw my name in. You know, I was in the top 10%. I was always, you know, my parents, they said you had to get good grades, and you know, I played sports, so I wasn't like some slouch, you know. But it was never like my dream to be a pilot or. Yeah, which is, I kind of feel bad, you know, because most people that come up to me are like, hey, what's it like? You know, is it amazing? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, you know, it's very stressful. It was very hard. There's many times it's very exciting. You know, I would say every day is literally, you know, 13 hours packed into 12, you know, is really, you know, you're eating lunch, Snickers most of the time. So most of the people really want to have that job. You know, they you know, they clawed for it. They tried their whole life. But yeah, I think that gave me an advantage actually going into pilot training, because you get up to a certain level. You know, you see that with like intense, you know, high level sports, and it really comes down. It's all mental. It's all mental. You know, you look at the high level athletes, which I think, you know, being a fighter pilot is basically you're in a high level sports team. You know, it's tribal. It's you know, you're in a brotherhood, just like you're on any sports team. You're just playing. The stakes are a little bit higher, you know, or quite a bit higher. But you get used to that after a while. But I think in pilot training, because I didn't, it wasn't my live stream. I didn't care that much, so I had an advantage where I was more relaxed, I guess. You know, like I could be smoother under the pressure because, you know, if I failed, it wasn't that as big a deal, I guess. You know.
Well, they don't put just anyone in a multi-million-dollar machine. You know, I mean, you have a lot of responsibility. They don't want to lose those. So you know, I don't even know what those things cost in F-16. You know, but a ton of money.
I think it's 30 or 40 million, they say, and then it's, you know, however, 15,000 an hour, I think, to operator. It's a lot. So I mean, it's a lot. And that's the thing. You know, you look at all these videos when people are asking, well, why didn't you think about the box orb? You know, they're talking to Ryan Graves and those guys, and then you see him ask, like, why weren't you considering this? It's like, you know, we are doing a mission, like a very serious mission. It's not like you're just like, okay, what are we going to do, everybody, when you show up? You know, okay, let's go fly around and we're going to take some pictures and stuff. No, it's like, you know, you've already been the week prior, you know, they've already decided what your mission's going to be. And by the way, that was decided, you know, months prior based on the training program for the weapons system officer, you know, whoever's your squadron weapons officer who's going to develop the training program. You know, everyone takes this stuff very, very seriously. You know, you get in a fighter squadron, there's no, it's not like there's a lot of joking around. You know, there's this culture of messing around, you know, the 69, the 420, all these little interior jokes, but even those are taken very seriously. You know, it's to a T. So yeah, it's a very serious, it was a very serious career. I really enjoyed many aspects of it, very stressful as well. And that's basically.
Yeah. You know, the typical commercial pilot, you ask them, what's it like? And they say 12,000 hours of boredom for every 15 seconds of horror or something like that. You know, that's their answer to it. But one of the things I do want to talk to you about, if you're in an F-16, you're alone. You don't have the WEVO, whatever they call the guy in the back, or the person in the back, woman or man. You don't have the weapons operator in the back. So you have to do everything yourself. How long, I mean, how intense is that to figure out how to do everything while you're in, like, to say if you're in a combat situation, what type of training would you have to get for that? And then I want to go into the equipment, how it is similar to what these videos you have seen, you know, what you had that you dealt with, that you see that these videos are coming up. They have the same equipment more or less, right?
Yeah, so that's basically, I flew my career starting kind of the same time. You know, I started flying F-16s in 2004. So right when the Nimitz, you know, videos effectively came out. So the FLIR video is from 2004, and the equipment, the internal equipment is basically, I would argue to guess exactly the same, right? The internal pod equipment. But they do modify it somewhat to deal with each aircraft. You know, like on the FLIR video, and I do have some pictures that I can show if you want to show as well,
Sure.
from the FLIR video. Yeah. But yeah, so it's essentially the exact same equipment. It's called a FLIR pod. They call a FLIR pod in the Navy, but we just called it a targeting pod. So, you know, and then they go through advanced targeting pods. You're always getting new upgrades in the Navy and Air Force. So they're always adding on new equipment. But the actual equipment itself is exactly the same. There's only a couple minor differences, like on the FLIR video. If you look in the F-16, to get a reference of where the pod is actually pointing, right? Because I mentioned that in my video today. The targeting pod, really what it does is provide very accurate angle and passive. So it passively tracks a target, which is very dangerous, right? Or very effective in a combat environment, because whatever you're tracking doesn't know that you're tracking it, right? So it's a passive tracking system. But in the F-16, we don't have the bearing and azimuth. So we don't have the azimuth and bearing that you see on the FLIR scope. So at the top, it'll say a little 1 left or 7 left. That means the pod is pointing 7 degrees to the left. In the F-16, we actually don't have that number. We have a little, it's called a situational awareness dot, and it's just a little square pixel that shows, it's just a visual representation of where the pod is looking. I actually like the Navy's setup better. You know, I think it's more accurate to do the FLIR pointing. But that is the basic, the targeting pod. And so when I saw those videos, specifically, I think it was the Gimbal one, but it was essentially Mick West was on CNN, I believe, and he was saying that this Gimbal video is somehow some airliner at range, and it's just so preposterous to me. You know, when I looked at the video, that I had to speak up, and that's really when I made that kind of inflammatory video against Mick West, and that is, in many ways, that's kind of propelled my, whatever. It basically, that video went somewhat viral, if you will. I think Chris Mellon shared it because everybody's just kind of tired of Mick West, I think, is my impression of the debunkers.
Yeah. You and I talked a bit off air, and I mentioned to you that I had, basically I had Mick West say that, he agreed after he listened to Kevin Day that it couldn't be, a commercial plane. And then 2 weeks later, he was on another TV station saying that it was. So even though he admitted he was wrong, he kept to it. And what about your dealings with Mick West? Because you two battled it out pretty good, didn't you? With videos.
Yeah, so it was basically, we never actually talked to each other. Actually, so I did, I didn't have a lot of communication set up. So I was a new youth. So I retired in August, right? I basically spent like 5 months. I was writing, I wrote a book essentially that I'll hopefully publish, maybe later this year. And then I just started YouTubing end of November. So it's really been about 7 or 8 months. I hadn't had any infrastructure set up. I'm just so happy I don't have a boss, or any employees at this point. I'm actually able to do some meaningful work that I'm enjoying. It's challenging, and I don't have any employees or a boss. So that's excellent. So we actually never talked on Twitter. We never contacted me. I didn't even have an email up. Even if you tried, I bet if he tried somewhat hard, he could have, just messaged me on Twitter or something.
Yeah. We have, just by the way, we have Gary Voorhees in chat. Are you familiar with who he is? He was on the Princeton?
I've read his name actually. But honestly, I just got into this 6 weeks ago. So as far as many of the names, I just got some essay on Kevin Day, reasonable. So I'm barely getting spun up on all this stuff. No, I don't know.
Right. Well, I have I just have a situation here. Unfortunately, someone called me a Luddite, and I understand that. That's a guy that has a lot of tech problems. And today I'm on a boat, and today I tried an inverter to charge my laptop. Anyway, I'm down to 20%. It's eating the battery quickly. So, Bill, I'm going to need you to come up because I can't run this thing. I hate to say this live, Bill, but I can't run this thing and get in on my phone at the same time. I'm going to have you come right in, Bill, if you would.
I am here, and it's great to see Gary and Chad and Dave and all the folks that are hanging out in the chat room. All right, I'm standing
you
by.
You got to take over for now. When you see me in, Bill, bring me in, okay?
So, what was your take, Chris, when this UAP report? Did you do any research on it, on the background of it, and the involvement of supposedly these cases that were involved? What was your take on the whole UAP report?
So I came into the whole UAP in general, NMA, like I said, and then I got wind of the UAP report. I was very excited actually, and I didn't know what to expect. It looks like you have a lot of people are really disappointed with the report that came out. I guess I had no expectations in any sense, but now I've been going back and looking through the old reports. So on my channel today, I posted. I found this a video. I think a subscriber pointed it out, and it was basically from 1952 when they just had whatever UFO reportings over DC, and it was the Air Force General, Major General Samford, and he gives his I guess words at a press conference about flying saucers. And it sounds very similar to what we're hearing today, but I guess what's the benefit of what I was happy to see in the new report is they gave specific numbers. Right. Once you give a number, it's pretty hard to go back. That's why you don't give numbers in business dealings, et cetera, because once you say that number, now they have something to hang on. And so I was happy to see that had to get approved. Everyone basically had to say, yes, you can send out that information. And so from the UAP report, what I was really happy about was first you have 80 incidents where you have corroborating data, so multiple sensors. And I think this is just so key. One of the points I wanted to bring up for this podcast is just multiple sensors, because what can you trust really when it comes down to what can you believe, what can you trust? And if it's just a video, it just really limits your options, But now if we have multiple sources, of something, it really knocks out all of the debunking claims. If it's hovering in 30 knots of wind, it is not a balloon. I know that. There's certain things you can just knock out. Like I know it's not an airliner at 40 miles if I have a corroborating radar cut that shows it at 5 miles. So it just immediately, as soon as you have, corroborating data from multiple sensors, then that just ups your I guess the water tightness of the case.
The public would love to get more of this information. Obviously, a lot of this is classified for the obvious reasons. And I think that's what the public is cringing for. They want that information, so they get to see that there's multiple sources corroborating what's going on, and maybe, just maybe, that with everything that's going on, this whole movement going forward, because in the report it said that the Air Force had little historic data on this, which I find bizarre, going back decades, Project Blue Book and some of the other investigations, but. Would you think that this will encourage pilots that are now active duty to come forward and speak about the things that they may be witnessing?
Yeah, without a
you
doubt.
are
Yeah,
retired,
without a doubt.
You think so?
You know, because I mean, I had basically nothing to lose. You know, that's why I basically set it up where I've gotten to a position in my life where I physically don't care what anyone else thinks, you know, and I've been able to make that happen, you know, and I praise it every day. I'm like so happy. You know, I try and, you know, really just enjoy the time, I guess, because I'm just waiting for it to end. But basically, that's only because I have effectively nothing to lose, essentially, that I'm able to speak, you know, and I don't really fit in with the fighter world. You know, I'm not like an outcast or something, but you know, I wouldn't say I'm your standard fighter pilot, you know, if you will. I think your standard fighter pilot is like Lieutenant Commander or Commander Fravor. You know, when that's what he brought me over to the believing side, or possible to believe. You know, I can't even actually say I believe, but it's a possibility now. And I think before I saw Fravor's interview with Lex Friedman, it just wasn't a possibility, you know. And I've seen that now I've seen the bias get removed. You know, if you really just cannot imagine that it is even possible that there could be alien life, you know, on Earth, then it doesn't matter kind of what I can show you, you know, until you experience it or something. I think it's very difficult, I guess, to believe or to even think that it's a possibility, you know. So I would say, but Fravor did it, you know, and although I don't have much to lose, I have something to lose, you know, like I'm not going to waste my time. I don't waste my effort. So Fravor, you know, he convinced me, because when I listen to that 3-hour podcast, you know, the things he says, you know, I've lived it. I guess what a lot of people don't realize, and I guess it's part, and I tried to write it in my book, is that you actually kind of meld with these machines. It's like a it's one system. So when you're in a fighter, you know, the pilot is really, at least in the older jets, is the brains. You know, the pilot is to fuse the information, is really doing sensor fusion. You know, we talk about the fifth generation fighters, the F-22s, F-35s. This new capability they have is called sensor fusion. It's one of the tenets of fifth generation fighting, and really that is, you're taking all of the information, you know, that these systems can fuse or can gather, and then it's picking the most important information and using that, and that's the sensor fusion, and that's really what the pilots did before. And I think Martin, he asked at the beginning, you know, what does your training involve as you use up your training to use all these systems, and that's really what it involves, is interpreting the information from these systems, and then understanding which system is the most important at the right time. And that's really sensor fusion, is really picking the critical sensor, and corroborating from multiple sensors, you know.
Because
if you look,
you also have the implementation, because they're doing it now with the AI aspect of it. You're going to have actual wingmen that are AI drones that are going to do a lot of the work for the pilot, maybe doing reconnaissance ahead of them or as a support group. So what you're saying is true, because it almost reminds me of that old movie Firefox, when all the you know, we're not
thinking
there
Russian,
yet.
Thinking
Right.
Russian.
Yeah, exactly. We're not there yet, but it seems like it's more and more going to that direction. But the one thing I will say about the pilots in active service, I'm sure because they're still on active duty, a lot of this would be held behind closed doors, classified setting, because they're still in service. I don't see. Do you see this happening in public hearings with pilots that are currently on active duty participating in a public hearing, or you think it'll be all classified?
I mean, I don't know. I have I'm not sure. I mean, there shouldn't be anything that stops people from talking. You know, you can ask me a question and I'll just say, look, I can't answer that. Right. You know, I mean, so it's really, what is the motivation for it? You know, who is going to orient this? You know, I don't know if the military could actually physically stop a pilot from speaking if he wants to, right? If he's going to speak about something, say he saw some UAP, right? And he wants to go speak on, let's say he wants to come on my channel, you know? Right. I don't think the military can actually can actually stop you. I mean, I don't know. I'm no lawyer or whatever, but I guess they would have to give you an order. Don't go saying anything. But I don't know. It's untrapped. I think that was the point is they didn't have a way to report any of this stuff.
Right.
You're not, even if you bring it up, say you bring it up to your to someone in your squadron, how would you report it? The only way I can think is through the safety channels. But what if it's not a safety incident? Like you see this thing, 5 miles away, you have some gas to burn because you're waiting, for the next engagement. And so you like fly over there and try and check it out. I could see that happening. And then you see something. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if the military has the jurisdiction to say like, you cannot talk. I'm sure they do. But,
well, Martin is back. It was great having these few minutes with you, Chris. And I just want to say, on behalf of everyone at KGRA, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners, thank you for your service and
you're welcome.
Sacrifices, and God bless you and your family.
Yeah, thank you, Bill.
See you later. You're welcome.
So, interesting. I couldn't see a lot of that, but I was backstage for a little bit of it. And one of the things I thought of while you two were talking is, what about the NDAs or when things are classified? It seems like you were talking about that. I've always wondered about that because I think it's pretty interesting that David Fravor can talk about what he saw, yet other people that were involved in the same incident are supposedly can't talk about some of the data and stuff like that, which I think is really bizarre.
Yeah, so I actually had a note for NDAs. There was a Lou Elizondo. He was on Theory of Everything. I don't know if you saw that.
Yep.
Yeah, so he had a question there. Mick West, we were talking about him. He had a question, why doesn't he just give up his NDA, if it's so critical? And Lou, he was pretty offended. I didn't know he actually gave up his pension, he said.
Yes.
That is a big deal. I mean, that is the carrot for the military. I probably wouldn't have stayed in 20 years if it didn't have a pension. They kept giving me amazing assignments, actually. So I stayed in, but he gave that up. And what I wanted to mention is it's not like an NDA in the civilian world. You say NDAs, but I never remember signing an NDA. I swore an oath, like to defend the Constitution. I signed a lot of things saying I will never speak about this, or but mainly it's stronger than an NDA. It is, anyone who's been in a combat, if you go into a combat zone, you get what's called SERE level training, survival, evasion, resistance, and then whatever the last E is. So sorry, live stream. So SERE, you actually get trained in POW training, and so, and that is classified. We can't talk about that, but I'll tell you. You can guess what POW training involves, and it probably involves practice POWing. And so this is part of the engage, that's for a week training, and so, and you have friends that died, and they didn't give up the information. So it's like, it's not about an NDA. It's stronger than an NDA. It's like a blood pact. And we're just not gonna, and especially any fighter pilots or any operators, anyone who's had to, at least put their life into someone else's hands in a combat environment or something, you're not just gonna give that up, is what I'm saying. People can torture me and try and get information, and everyone breaks, essentially. Supposedly everyone breaks, but they're not gonna get the right information, and so it's just, or I'm going to do my damnedest not to let it happen. It's not like I'm just signing an NDA. I went to work at Google, and like I'm signing this NDA. No, it is much more serious than that. And when I saw Lou, I was like, yeah, he's not going to break this. He's just not going to do it. Really... He gave up his pension already. Like, what more do you need?
And he really was upset. It was actually Mick West that posed the question to him. That was the person that the host read, and when he read it, Lou got really upset. He said, "Are you going to come visit me every day in jail?
Yes. Yeah.
And are you gonna pay my mortgage? Are you going to and all this stuff?" So yeah, he has a lot to lose. So let me just ask
it's
you.
not that. Yeah, it's an honor integrity thing. I guess
Sure.
I should put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. I know that's kind of how it is. The band of brothers, and sisters. So have you, while you were flying? Let me just ask you this. I did speak to a pilot, Air Force pilot, one time that told me he had a UFO encounter for miles and miles and miles. A green orb was following him. But had you ever seen anything weird, or had you ever heard of anyone personally who talked about it and is seeing anything?
Yeah. No. Negative to both questions. I wish. Again, you're just not looking for it. If I took you on a fighter mission, I think you'd be your eyes would be open. It's just the amount of thinking that's going on. You're just sweating in the jet. Just because you're looking at so many things, you're thinking about so many things. Am I in formation? Am I doing the correct thing? What's the frequency? What's the mission? What's the plan? I just never thought of it. It just never came up. I was never. That's where I wasn't vectored onto anything. And from the report, we kind of mentioned it a couple times. The two big things from the UAP report was the multiple sensors. Right, I've already talked to that quite a bit. It's very important. But the other thing was the 11 flight safety incidents. Because if it's a flight safety incident, I was a flight safety officer. I'm sure I got the safety stink on me, as they call it. You have to file these reports if it's a hazardous air traffic report, so a HATR.
Sure. Yeah.
So like if a commercial airliner, for instance, has to change their direction of flight and it impacts some other thing, it could cause a close pass or something, you would have to file a HATR. It's happened a few times throughout my career. Just I heard about it. Someone was mad at the tower. They turned them into another plane and they almost hit. So they fired a hazardous air traffic report. And so in the UAP report, there was 11 of these, which I also thought was interesting because what that means is the pilots, they decided to file it because they had to move, or they were forced to file it because they came too close to one of these objects. So I'm really interested in those 11 because that means they were probably visual. Visual means the pilot sees the object, and that is kind of ambiguous in a few of these instances. Even like Chad Underwood, I was researching today, listening to some of his interviews on the Nimitz. When he filmed that FLIR interview or the FLIR video, he actually never saw it with his eyes, and the pilot's in front, so that's why I'm like, well, did the pilot see it? I have a question. Did the pilot see it? Another interesting point I didn't know from that I found out today is that the other commander also saw it. So in an interview I was just reading with Chad Underwood, he said that, he didn't see it with his eyes, but he does know that Commander Fravor saw it, and the Hornet commander who was out there. I don't know who that was. I mean, I'm sure we could find it out. Sorry if I just outed him. But Chad Underwood did already. So that would be my question. What did that guy see? So would that guy come out potentially? And I hope maybe if enough people talk about it, maybe they'll be willing to come on, some channel like mine, where I'm not going to hopefully I won't bring Mick West there and challenge him, but maybe they would, maybe they will. So that would be the hope. I think, yes, people will come out, and I think it's Commander Fravor, it's Chris Mellon, even Jeremy Corbell, just the people getting that information declassified.
Well, here's a question for you now that you brought up Jeremy Corbell. He's been on the show a few times, but the question I have for you is, why is he getting these videos, and how can he get these videos and the person giving him the videos not get into any type of trouble doing it?
I don't know, actually. Because it's interesting, because the military gets in a pickle, right? Because there's nothing in that video that's classified, right? If you look at those videos, there's nothing. So that bridge, at least what they're showing, the flare image, that radar image, which actually is from the spinning. It's not the Sea Giraffe radar. It's actually that Sea Marine radar. Actually, I think is what's actually that screen. I think it's wrong in my video. But either way, those screens are not classified. I think they keep talking about this information center, the CIC. The Combat Information Center. I think that's like the brains of the ship. And so I think that's down in the depths, and that's where you're going to get the Sea Giraffe radar. You're going to get, that'll be classified, I think. So that video, is going to be too classified to where anybody filming that now, because you're filming a classified screen, or the information you're filming is classified. So that's where it's obvious you're going to get in trouble. But now here, these videos like Jeremy Corbell has, there's nothing in the video that's classified.
So he must have some, I haven't spoken to him about it, but he must have some type of connection where people know his interests and they are feeding him this material when they realize that it's not going to get them in trouble. I mean, that's the only thing I can figure out. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, honestly, I don't know. Obviously, he has sources that will trust him, unless it's fraudulent. I don't think it is. It looks legit. He has sources that will trust him, and maybe there just wasn't an outlet, or they didn't feel there was any other outlet. I was kind of surprised actually that the reaction I got, because I've been making all videos for 6 months, and I got no real reaction with my videos, and then all of a sudden, I have this huge spike, getting all these hits, if you will. So I just think there's not many people in the business. It's not like I'm special. Like, I haven't even seen a UAP. I'm not even one of the pilots or Wizzos that has seen anything. It's just I'm actually making videos about it or investigating it, I guess is the difference.
Yeah. Well, you said a lot of things straight. And, one of them, I know, for instance, today I watched the video that you published about 6 or 7 hours ago, where you talk about the tic-tac and how when it goes off screen, a lot of people are saying, well, that's the angle of the camera's moving or whatever. But you very clearly pointed out that it's looking straight ahead and that it only moves like a very small 1% or something like that. I don't even 1 degree or whatever it is. And the thing does go off camera.
Yeah, easily seen. So Mick West, he has a video where he basically says it's just the camera losing lock, right? So the targeting pods are looking at the object, and it's not really the object that's zooming off the screen, right? It's the targeting pod is losing lock, and it's just going off to the right, right? It's basically just going off to the right. But yes, that's easily seen. Like I was explaining, the differences between the F-16 and the F-18 targeting pod. We don't have that little azimuth indicator. I'd have to look at this little pixel dot, and see it move. But the F-18 has that, and you can see just very clearly that it doesn't move. The camera does not move. From the deep dive, I'll have to actually go in and confirm that the field of view of the targeting pod is greater than 1 degree, but I'm pretty sure it is. So
I don't know if you heard this, but I was alerted to it the other day. Now, I didn't hear it personally, but a person I trust told me about it, a listener of the show that I've known a long time, that Lou Elizondo said that there's a possibility of a 23-minute video being released. One of the things that a lot of people bring up in these videos is, well, first of all, they say they're very blurry, but it's just the type of camera that has captured it. Whether it's the night vision, the FLIR, or whatever. But this video supposedly is going to be 23 minutes of more than one UAP in a situation, and hopefully we'll get to see that sometime soon.
Yeah, he's in that same podcast on Theory of Everything or Theories of Everything. He was very optimistic, actually. He said this next month would be pretty interesting, or very interesting, he said.
He said that before, and you know what? And it was. He was saying some things are going to happen, and they seemed to happen right after he said that. So, he has a really good insight. As you mentioned, Chris Mellon as well. So yeah, I'm really glad that these people have come forward. I will tell you this: a few years ago, you wouldn't have paid any attention to this,
No.
this whole topic. Ever since the New York Times article came out and all those people did that work, but before that happened, that has changed everything and made people like you actually feel more safer looking at this topic without the ridicule factor so much, worrying about it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it's really flavor. So what I was saying earlier is that you end up kind of melding with these machines, because you spend thousands and thousands of hours. Insane. That's just flight hours. I have 1,850 some odd flight hours.
Wow.
But for every hour that I have flying a fighter, I have 1 or 2 hours flying simulators.
Yes.
And again, all of it is using these systems. All you're focusing on is how to use the fighting system to accomplish the mission, right? And you do that through using the targeting pod, through using these night vision goggles, through using the radar, and through using your own eyeballs. So what happens after a while, though, is this you tend to meld with the machine. So I know it sounds, I guess, weird, but you can anticipate things, and so when I see something in the targeting pod, it means more to me, I guess. It means more to me. It's because I'm used to looking through that. I'm used to looking through that spectrum, if it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you'll hear, we hear the radar. So when radar hits my fighter, I can tell by the frequency of the radar warning receiver what type of radar it is. I can tell if it's a friendly fighter just by how it's hitting, how it's the type of radar frequency. The night vision goggle. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but when you are locked on, that, don't you? You have all kinds of warnings going off that you have a lock on, correct?
It depends. It depends, right? So part of it is understanding how all these systems interrelate. So sometimes you have a lock, but you don't have a lock with all your systems. And that's what we see in these videos, which is also very confusing, because normally in these targeting pod videos, you will also have a radar locked to it, right? Because you're going to have all of your sensors looking at the same target and to identify it. Okay, you can't split up. You can have your radar tracking other things. You can make it go weird, but generally you want all of your sensors. So what Chad Underwood said, basically when he went to find the Tic Tac, is the ship gave him a vector. Okay, so the ship was seeing it with its radar. I'm assuming the SPY-1 radar, and then it told him where to go. So it gave him a vector to intercept it. And then he used his radar, and so he painted it with his radar, and then he was able to lock it. Okay, but locking with your radar, normally you would just get a stable track. It'll show up. I see a little blip on my radar screen. I move the cursors with my left thumb, and then I TMS forward to command a lock. It's different in the Hornet. Okay, I was starting to learn it in DCS, but then the radar will do its best to try and focus more energy onto that target. So that it can give a weapons quality track, okay? Because otherwise, it's just kind of tapping a target. So it's not spending all of its energy just focusing on one single target. It's scanning through the sky, so you can't have some wily fighter come down low or something. So when you're commanding a lock, what you're really doing in that case is you're telling the radar to give you a weapons quality track. Tell me exactly where this thing is. Just stare at it with all of your energy. But with a targeting pod now, which is what we see in all these videos, the Flare 1, GOFAST, and Gimbal, it has a passive lock. So it works different. It actually uses the screen. So it uses just the screen to process the little pixels on the screen. And it tries to pick out a target just based on its processing. So for that, it will just lock the little, whatever's in its processing to do a object tracking. Which is, I think they call it auto track. So he does initially, Chad Underwood, he says he's able to lock it on radar, which is surprising. Although he does say it actually goes from 50 feet up to 50,000 feet as well. So he's seeing a lot of erratic altitude cuts on his radar. But either way, they're able to lock it and then get to within range to lock it with the targeting pod. But what you'll see is they have no range. So it keeps saying 99.9 ranging. Normally that would tell you exactly how far you are to the target. So the radar will either tell you, and then it'll, in the F-16 anyway, it'll have a little F next to the range. So it'll say like F 3.4 miles. And in my HUD, it'll come up F 3.4. So I know that that range comes from my radar, and I have a valid radar track. If it says something else now, so it did not say, or I know it didn't say F with a range because it didn't have a range, and which is interesting because all of these intercepts, you'll notice, there's no range, and so that means the radar is not either they couldn't get a lock, which is what they said in the Nimitz, or it denied their lock, broke their lock, etc.
Interesting, and also, would you see yourself? Would you see a transponder on another craft, or would that only be for ground-based radar?
It depends. So if you have an interrogator, so I've flown with an interrogator a few times. It depends on the aircraft. So basically, if you have an interrogator, then you push a little button in the F-16. It's like a little thumb left, and it will interrogate wherever your radar is looking. So your scan volume of your radar is usually like plus or minus 60 degrees. You know, it's pretty much out in front of you. It will scan through there and just say, hey, transponders out there, you know, give me a hit back. And that will tell you what their IFF, you know, friendly or foe, identification friendly or foe will come back as.
Yeah.
But normally you have to activate it. But it's an amazing tool. I mean, if you have an interrogator, I'd almost take it over a radar in a civilian environment, you know, because it tells me where all the civilian aircraft are, so I don't like run into you guys, you know, basically.
Now, I do in this when we go into the second hour, I want to talk about specific videos, but and we're going in about 7 minutes. We're going into our 5-minute break, and it's gonna be a little tricky. I'm on the phone here. But hopefully Bill will be able to pull that all off. And, but anyway, I have a friend, Lee Spiegel is his name, and he was researching years ago in the Air Force Academy Flight School Handbook. There was a chapter on unidentified objects. And I'm wondering, do you recall anything about that in flight school? Because they did remove it.
Never. Yeah, never.
Yeah. And was that ever talked about in flight school? I mean, it's not something you would think about, but would you think about it?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, literally never thought of it. Literally. Like I thought, you know, I heard of Roswell. I didn't really think anything of it, you know. I will say I had a chemistry teacher at the Air Force Academy, and he had said it was humans. That's all I remember. This is like the only encounter I ever had in aliens. Is he was a chemistry teacher, and supposedly he just said, yeah, it's humans. He was, I don't know if he had, but again, this was in 2000. How would he know? It was still 50 years before. So,
yeah.
But nothing. So nothing about unidentified flying objects. You know, we're worried about like, you know, chemical weapons training. You know, am I wearing my chem mask correctly? Not failing, you know, passing emergency procedures, all the mission elements. Never on UFOs or UAPs, or honestly, up until 6 weeks ago, I honestly thought I was in line with the science community that the universe is just too big based on the size, you know, based on light speed. There's no way, it is absolutely impossible anything could get here within, you know, a few hundreds, thousands at the minimum years. So I just never considered it, you know, as even a possibility, which is kind of crazy, I guess.
It is. And, you know, I mean, one of the things I think is kind of strange, and I've heard someone else talk about this, is it seems like most of the media out of this report spawned headlines of it's not aliens. You know, I talked about this last week. Lawrence Krauss, whatever it is, it ain't aliens. That was the title of his. But that seems like to be the focus, and they never said that. There was no definitive no that it's not. It's just that it might be something, it might be something else, so I don't understand where everyone got that attitude all of a sudden, that it has nothing to do with extraterrestrial. And I'm not saying that I know that it does either, but I'm just saying that it's definitely a possibility, and it should be in the running for the totally unexplained things. And you'll see that coming up in a few minutes, in a clip I'm going to run during the break. But
that's what I saw. Is Chris Mellon, in his recent review, that was his point. His argument is that's all. He was happy with the report. Actually, he was happy with the report that they came out, but he was unhappy with the media reaction. And he said the media's reaction is it's not aliens. Which is not the case, right?
I think I may have just gotten that statement from something I heard him say. That kind of made me think about it some more. That might have been where I first heard someone talk about it. Yes, that was Chris Mellon, right?
Yeah, he wrote it in that UAP response in his letter, about the UAP report. He basically says that he's not happy with the media's response, and that they just say it's not aliens. And his argument is, if it's not us, it's not the Russians or the Chinese, then who is it? That was kind of his point. Is why is it off the table? Why is it off the table?
Well, I'm wondering if there's going to be more funding for the research of that or not. We'll see what the future holds. There are some people that think that it should be researched. I don't think it shouldn't. I think it would be crazy if they didn't put some money into what people are seeing out there. And it's not just the military. That's what they're focusing on, but it's not just the military. There's a lot more people in the world than military people. So there's a lot of credible witnesses all over that are seeing something, and I think it just takes the point where someone has to have a sighting themselves before they realize that, hey, wait, maybe there is something to this.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really what I feel when I listen to the Fravor interview. Is that's what I had. Is I feel like I was there, because the way he explains it, and I've been in that same exact situation. I know everything he's talking about. It's kind of like I was there, and I'm seeing this as he sees it. Because you do so much chair flying too. When we're flying, we chair fly so much, and so you're just always mentally going through the processes. And so that was the difference for me. So I've never experienced. I will, if the aliens want to experience with me, my email is on. It's on my YouTube about page, because I want to know, man. I want to know, But it's disheartening. It is, right? Because you look, 69 years ago, the Air Force was saying essentially the same. They got radar hits, they launched the aircraft, and they looked, and it was red and orange lights. And then they don't know what it is, but they're sure it's not a menace to us. If they don't know what it is, then how can they be sure that it's not a threat? Is my biggest question. But they say it straight face, and this is military people. I guarantee any military person's no, I want to know what it is. I want to know what it is, and then I'll determine if it's a threat. But here they are now. Now the military says, well, we know it's not a threat, but we have no idea what it is. Which is just
it's like you said, 69 years ago, almost the same thing is being said. That's pretty ironic. And I saw that clip. I've run that clip too on this show before. And it's very interesting. So we're going to give it a go. Bill, I hope you're right on top of this. And we have a 5-minute break. And we have a clip here from the view of Tyson, Neil deGrasse Tyson. And I think you're going to find it pretty interesting. And please wait for the very last part. Make sure you listen to that. So we're going to go into the break right now. Hang in there over at KGR Radio. We'll be right back right after these messages.
anticipated Pentagon investigation found no evidence these UFOs were alien spacecraft, but they're not ruling out the possibility either. So you have a whole chapter of your book called Are We Alone in the Universe? So I'm going to ask you, do you think these UFOs are extraterrestrial in nature?
Yeah, so first of all, that book is a collection of questions we have all had about our place in the universe. And top 2 or 3 questions I'm ever asked are we alone in the universe? So this is right at the center of people's core of curiosity. That's first. Second, the universe brims with mysteries, and we so want many of those mysteries to be some favored answer that we might carry. You see a light in the sky you don't understand. Gee, I want that to be aliens visiting us. And so in science, however, you rank possibilities by likelihood. Okay, these Navy videos, you have to ask, if they are aliens visiting, why are they only visiting Navy pilots? How about the rest of Earth's surface? There are 3 billion smartphones on this planet. Each one is a high-resolution color camera and video recorder. So basically, aliens invasions have been crowdsourced to the population of the planet. If any alien is landing anywhere, it's going to look what else we have already streamed that used to be rare, but we knew was happening. All right, like police violence and all of this. If aliens landed, you know we would have it. It would be viral overnight. But instead, there are cat videos that go viral.
Well, Neil, new NASA Chief Bill Nelson has said that they're launching their own investigation into the UFOs as well, and acknowledges they don't know what they are either. One theory is that the UFOs could be a foreign military aircraft. According to the New York Times, China and Russia have both invested heavily in supersonic technology. From what you've seen, how likely is that, and does that theory trouble you?
So first of all, of the $600, $700 billion budget of the Pentagon, I would want some fraction of that to check out the sky and make sure that there aren't threats. So I'm happy to have learned that there are government programs investigating these. No problem there. By the way, they could be foreign craft that have achieved some level of aerodynamic sophistication that we have not. I'm glad they're looking into that. Totally. I have no problem with that. Now, some of it I think is not explained simply by hypersonic technology. There's behavior of these dots that I don't know what that is. And my first thought is it's some kind of bug or malfunction of the electronics. Okay? That would be my first thought, not we're being observed by intelligent aliens from another planet. But that's me.
Now, there seems to be growing bipartisan support for more government funding for research into UFOs. But as Republican Senator Marco Rubio has pointed out, a stigma still exists around the issue, which can prompt giggles and eye rolls on Capitol Hill. How do we convince lawmakers to think less in terms of ET and more like contact or interstellar?
Yeah, I think the way to destigmatize it is there are these things showing up in military radar, and we don't know what they are. Anyone who is curious, say, let's go try to figure it out. If you lead with the idea that we're being visited by aliens, that's some people have that as their first explanation for what they don't understand. But for a skeptical scientist, that would probably be the last explanation. As Carl Sagan famously said, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, not monochromatic, fuzzy Navy video of something that looks like a Tic Tac.
One of the great challenges in this world is knowing enough about a subject to think you're right, but not enough about the subject to know you're wrong.
All right, welcome back. Thank you, Bill, for handling that. You did a good job. Let's bring in, there he is. Brought him over. We're back. So I hope you got a chance to listen to that and kind of the irony of how that little clip at the very end. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I've seen Neil deGrasse Tyson. I've watched a few of his comments, I guess, on this stuff. I don't know. I mean, I guess I didn't have any big expectations for him to say anything one way or the other. You know, it is surprising he's so that throws out that example. You know, this is just a radar. He obviously doesn't know what he's talking about. Right.
Yeah.
I should make a video, you know, like the Mick West one, like wrong, you know, Neil deGrasse Tyson, I'm coming after you.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He doesn't seem to know what he's talking about, because he should know it's not just one sensor, you know, for that, like I just said. So we had, for Chad Underwood, you know, you had the ship radar, you had the F-18's radar, and then you have the targeting pod. So yeah, I think he kind of comes off to me as your standard, I would say, civilian. Okay, doesn't know really anything about the military, you know. And again, I didn't know anything about the military really before I joined. But yeah, it's easy to assume that it's easy to come up with a general stereotype of what you think the people in the military are, and then kind of what I enjoyed actually being in the military and living around the world. Was kind of what I did was introduce America to other cultures, hopefully for the better. Is that you change the stereotypes, you know? So I think it's just, I had no expectations. He has the same stereotype I would expect from any other, you know, man of science, I guess.
Yeah.
But that is, I think there is a huge blind spot. There is a huge blind spot. Especially in the astronomical level, you know, when you go to using large telescopes, when we're looking out to great distances, and it's just very new. You know, I just want everybody to remember that. You know, when did we even start? When did we realize there was, you know, the Kuiper Belt? You know, or I'm just throwing out these random things, but it's come very soon. You know, and I believe we've kind of hit a stopping point in our physics. I've mentioned it a little bit before, but basically, like on the video I mentioned today, was dark energy, right? If you look at basically current physics now, and the whole time I grew up is, you know, the universe is expanding. It's expanding at a faster rate. This was very surprising for everybody. And basically, galaxies move the way they're moving. There should be at least twice the mass that there is in these galaxies, right? If galaxies are the way we understand them to be, gravity's the way we understand to be, then these galaxies should actually be spinning apart, right? All these stars on the outside of these galaxies should just be expanding out because they're spinning faster than all of our math takes into account. And so what they do is they just add in this other little fudge factor, right? They add in a fudge factor and they call it dark energy, right? To make all their math work, for how the universe expands, to make all of these very long you know, equations which have 50 letters in them. Very few people in the world, I think, even really understand them, the actual equations. And to make these equations work, they add in this fudge factor of dark energy and dark matter. And the number is ridiculous. You know, what is it? 85%. Every time it's a different number, you know, but they're basically 85% wrong. I've heard that recently. Or I heard 95. I went to look on Wikipedia, what is dark? What do they think actually dark matter makes up of the universe? And it was 68% of the universe is dark energy, and then 27% is dark matter. So I think that leaves I can't do math in public. It's 8% of the universe is actual real matter that we understand and can interact with. Which just is preposterous to me, you know, preposterous. You know, imagine you go to take a test, you know, and they're you got an 8, you know, that's not going to pass, you know. A physicist, you're 92% wrong, you know. And so I think there is a huge gaping hole in the whole realm of our understanding of, especially the outer universe, you know. As you get further away from what we can physically touch and what we can physically analyze, it gets more and more difficult. And I think we're at a definite point. So I was reading something before where if you look back at you know, history, I guess, of science, Aristotle, you know, is kind of the big first thinker And he came up with this very effective model of how the world works. It was basically based on everything they understood at that time, in our understanding of the universe. It was like, there's fire, it's hot, so it goes up. There's liquids, there's earth, and then there's animate matter. I don't know his exact argument, but basically it was so successful that they didn't really change anything until Galileo, basically until the Middle Ages. Our understanding, or humanity's understanding of science, was based on Aristotle, because his things were not wrong. Okay, so if you light something on fire, yes, it will it will get hot, right? If something's hotter than something else, it will rise. So his model for the universe was correct for the time and the understanding that we had. But it was so correct that it lasted for so long that they didn't bother like looking into anything else, or they didn't have the need, till they came out with
the Newtonian, same thing, Newton's laws. A lot of that's still used today, but a lot of it was inaccurate and used for centuries. It's fascinating.
It's not even that it's not necessarily inaccurate, right? Because if you look at Newtonian, so you go Aristotle essentially, and then you go into, let's say, Newtonian physics. So Newtonian physics, basically the apple falls. That works very well for like orbital mechanics. So if you're talking about making a spacecraft, which hopefully I can do one day, it's just Newtonian physics. So to get to the moon, we only needed Newtonian physics. That's why everybody's like, well, how did you get to the moon in 69? Well, they had a lot of chalkboards, and they were really good at Newtonian math. They were really good at algebra and all that stuff. But Newtonian physics will not get you GPS accuracy. So what I talked about, with this targeting pod, right? When you're talking about a targeting pod, and I get that level of accuracy, when I'm that level of pointing accuracy, you need Einstein physics. So you need like electromagnetic, you need very, very accurate INSs, right? That use laser gyros. So you're not, I can't drop a bomb on your feet, as it was said, from miles away with Newtonian physics. That's what we used in World War II. And that's how I know all this stuff about like mill sizing. When I'm like, how do we mill size? That's like, the basic bombing is old school military, angles and gravity, gravity bombing essentially. And that's Newtonian physics. So I just think we've hit a stopping point to where we're waiting for the next Einstein. Essentially, we're waiting for that next. We're waiting for the next breakthrough. But as of now, they're just kind of talking BS. Essentially, is what I consider it. Their numbers are way off. They have. I honestly believe we have no clue what we're looking at when we look out into the universe, and I really I do think that.
Yeah, I think about that type of things, those type of things quite a bit, and also that if we were to know what all this, this matter or dark matter, whatever, if we were to figure it out someday, maybe we will. But the fact is that there's research going into it, tons of money going into the research, and yet they think it's impossible that we may be visited from extraterrestrials, and that it's a silly thing too, because it can't be done. And so when I brought up that I had Seth Shostak on a couple of times here from the SETI Institute, and I asked him the question, I said, so you think UFOs are kind of ridiculous or whatever they are, the hubcap in the sky, I can't remember what he said, but you think there's something to dark matter, and you think there's something to dark energy when you can't reach out and touch it. You say you need to reach out and touch a UFO, but you can't reach out and touch that.
No.
So there's kind of an irony.
You can't even detect it. Yeah. So they're literally saying there is this thing that we can't interact with because it's not real matter. That's what they're saying. It's not even, we're like, we will never be able to detect it ultimately. But you bring up a great point. You're right. I mean, look at all the evidence, and that's what Fravor really did is and it's still ongoing. Like, I don't fully believe it. I said this. I think it's a process for people to kind of go into this changing of your worldview. But basically, there is a lens. Anyone who says they're not biased is just literally wrong, like physically wrong. Our brains will all put a filter in front of us. Our brains are processing all of our information. And as pilots, again, you become very attuned to this, of what your brain is being, what information you're receiving, what information you're processing, and when it's wrong, because ultimately you could die, or someone else you could die. So you become very attuned to like information that we're processing. And what you realize, we're all biased in some point. But when I was able to, I guess, listen to his words and imagine I was there, it made it possible. It made it possible in my brain. And with that, now it's almost like a filter is removed. And now when I go back and I look at old cases, I was looking at Glenn Davis. Have you seen that interview? It's in the National Archives. He was a coroner in Roswell.
Oh, yes, I saw that. Yeah.
He was a contractor. Yeah, it gives a very compelling interview. Why would this man lie about, seeing these aliens with such specific detail? And again, if we put people to death for witness testimony, but this is not good enough for these scientists, because, and yet dark energy, they will know. Here's another one. I'm sure I'm going to get heat for this one, but so they literally claim to know when the beginning of the universe is. Just think about this, right? Half the people in America don't even believe in evolution. Or whatever the numbers, it was exceptionally high when I've looked in the past, but, and we're here on the planet, and we can find evidence, same thing. We don't know what these UAPs are, right? It's been 70 years. We still can't figure out what these UAPs are. And yet our scientists say that they know within a few, whatever million years, that we know when the beginning of the universe is, and
yeah,
I don't know. It's hard for me to take them seriously, actually, after that.
Well, I've asked that to every single astronomer that I've had on this show, which has been quite a number over the years. I've asked them, do you think it's possible that the Big Bang Theory could be wrong? And so far, every one of them has said, no, all the evidence that we have points to that. And then the next question I always ask them after that is, what do you think was before the Big Bang?
Yes.
What was before that? And a lot of them, I think 2 or 3 of them have said they think that is the beginning of time, which is another mind-boggling. It is mind-boggling, and I'm sure the real answer, whatever the real answer may be, is going to be mind-boggling.
Yeah, the whole Big Bang. It sounds too much to me like the end of the map just falls into, there's a waterfall and it goes into like, dragons at the bottom. That's just what I see. When we looked out and we saw like the end of the ocean, and we just imagine, oh, it must just drop off.
Yeah.
Not that we're on a ball, right? Not that we're on a curved surface, which is mind blowing. If you actually think that is the reality. If you could imagine, you really thought the Earth was flat, and all of a sudden everyone's telling you it's round.
Yeah.
It did take 150 years for us to to humanity, I guess, to internalize this. Maybe it just takes 150 years for us to like internalize alien life.
Yeah. Well, I think there are a lot of astrophysicists that I have spoken to do believe there's, a really, really strong chance that there is intelligent life out there. But then they always follow it up with the distances are too far to get here. And the distances are totally vast. I totally understand that. But again, we're talking about physics. Maybe there's something about physics that we haven't discovered yet that can make the difference.
Without a doubt. Just look at it this way. So as you go smaller, the physics totally changes, right? So there's physics at our level, but now you go down to the size of an ant, right? So imagine an ant and a little water droplet. So if you can trap an ant in a water droplet, right? And now just the water tension on that little water droplet can trap that ant. So basically, you have arguably the strongest creature, one of the strongest creatures on our planet, essentially, for body weight, and they can be trapped by just a droplet of water, because the physics at that size is totally different. Your hypertension of the water is strong compared to an ant, whereas an ant, one of the strongest animals, has no problem outside of that. And that's just if you go to that level. So now you go down even further and it gets even weirder, right? It gets much weirder. If we go down to quantum physics, essentially the physics are totally different. If you look at all your quantum physics is like, it literally is another world, so as we're peering down further and further into, I call it another dimension, actually, is you're looking down into the quantum realm. I believe we're looking into another dimension, and there is actually where the physics are totally different. So now you have two particles. You have the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, right? Anything you look at, essentially, as soon as you look at it, it's not there anymore, right? Because you stopped it. There's so many weird things. Quantum entanglement, just solid state physics. I don't think anyone really understands, how a photon does not actually go from one place to the next, or an electron. It doesn't go from one energy state of an atom and smoothly, linearly go to the next energy state. It jumps. That's why it's called quantum. So your physics literally completely changes as we go smaller, right, into the quantum realm. But now as we go bigger, we expect this physics to be exactly the same as what we have at this level. And as you go smaller, it does not make, right? It totally changes. So why do we expect as we go bigger that the physics would be the same? It's completely different any other way. So that's why I would say.
Thought of it exactly like that. That's interesting. So I want to talk about some of the videos. First of all, when you were looking at these videos as a pilot, what was your first? Were you shocked by some of the things you were seeing?
Yeah, I mean, it's the video I made was literally I was shocked in that video. I wasn't acting, it was basically late at night. I'm filming the video and I'm just like, I watched Lou Elizondo, and he's on 60 Minutes, and he said basically all the capabilities these things had. And they said they were tracked by multiple sources, where that kind of cued me was, they've declassified this. They said it's been tracked by multiple sources, and they have a video as well, plus along with Fravor's account. So for me, honestly, I'm still kind of processing it. For a week, I just walked around like outside, just looking up like, man, am I being followed or something? I don't know. There is a weird mental process as you go through this, of seeing these videos. But the weirdest part was that gimbal video, right? So I'm analyzing the gimbal video for my video, and I've seen it. I've watched that video so many times at that point that I could see it. I could kind of see the image. Like I said, you kind of meld. It's in infrared. It looks blurry to you guys, but I see much more. And so I tried to find a photo of it. I was like, hey, this is what I think it looks like. So I was looking around on the internet to try and find an actual image, and I thought it'd be easy. I was like, hey, it looks like a flying saucer, like the one you see everywhere. But when I started looking, I couldn't find like a drawing of it. There was no good drawing of this flying saucer. I was like, no. So the best actual picture of it was, from a 1952 photo. It's this black and white photo. It has the flying saucer at an angle. There's like a tree. I don't know. Maybe it's a famous one. And I was like, that's it. that is that's what I'm seeing in the gimbal. And that blew me away. I just couldn't believe it, because I looked through for like 20 minutes. I looked online, because as a creator, sometimes you're looking for these random things.
Yep.
And I just couldn't find it.
I think what you're describing there is the Billy Meyer photo, which ends up being. I mean, it's a great looking photo, but I think. I mean, you'll have to send
Is
me
it
that
fake?
picture.
Watch it be a fake.
I,
You're like, damn it! After this
Well,
last week, I'm sure.
yeah. But let's talk about we have about 7 or 8 minutes, and we're going to start taking calls. And I do apologize tonight for the people in chat. I haven't been able to ask any of your questions. I apologize, but you'll get a chance to call in a few minutes coming up. And next week I should have a power pack for my computer if I have to be out here again at the boat. So let's talk about how you analyze. I watched your on the Omaha video the other day as well. And out of all the videos that you looked through and you tried to do your work on, what do you think is the most astounding out of all of them that you've looked at in these 4 or 5 videos, maybe more?
I guess for most astounding, I mean so I was just looking again at. I originally kind of discounted the FLIR video, but then I changed my mind a little bit, because you can clearly see at the end the maneuver that thing does is we can't do that. It just cannot be done. I guess you could say the gimbal is unbelievable, right? Like I just said, like it's a flying saucer. I see it levitating, but I guess I guess you could somehow like fake that. Maybe at the end of the day, you have some I don't know. Maybe I don't know. It's not doing any like crazy ping pong maneuvers that I would like to see. When Fravor talks about this, he says it moves. When he originally talks about the Tic Tac, he says it moves without inertia.
Yeah.
And I totally know what that. I think that would look like you hold a laser, like a laser pointer. A cat. If you move that around, it's almost like these things are moving around, almost like laser pointers are bouncing around. Which again, I've had a weird thought. I've thought a lot about what these things could possibly be. And when I first heard Fravor, the impression I got, basically how the thing flew, my initial impression was like intergalactic bee. Like that's kind of what I thought. It feels like a bee that's just out there kind of foraging around, and then we get too close to it and it just flies off. I don't know if that's any way the case, but that's kind of the impression I get. Is that
I actually get what it was reacting kind of like an insect in a way. It sounded like.
Yeah, I don't know. And that's what I guess I would expect alien life to be like. We get these, and that's where I kind of thought, I always discounted like the gray alien, kind of argument, is that it's just too convenient. It just seems way too convenient that alien life would even be remotely close to us. It would be shaped like us or have the same eye. You could argue the grays are whatever, very different. But it was almost too convenient for me, to where I think it feels more like real alien life to have this kind of thing that doesn't really interact with us because it doesn't really know what we are. Maybe it's not. It doesn't have all those capabilities to actually think. Maybe it's maybe it isn't super intelligent life. Maybe we're just seeing life. Alien life.
Yeah, or the technology. A lot of people have, when it comes to the drones, when it comes to the technology of the things like the Tic Tac, for instance, and what it was doing, are make the suggestion that it could be, yes, it could be alien technology, possibly, and maybe it's a drone, which I thought was an interesting take on that, and that
the von Neumann drones, yeah,
and then one of when I talked about Seth Shostak earlier, when he was on the show, he suggested that if there was ever any alien life here coming here to visit, it would have to be technological, like a drone, because the time distance and the thousands of years it would take, etc. And there could be an argument for that, but again, going back, there could be something about physics, as I said earlier, that we haven't figured out yet as well.
Well, I was watching a recent interview recently. I'm sorry, I can't tell you exactly, but basically they were saying that the time dilation works both ways. So if you were to go, say you could travel at 1/10 the speed of light. So from an outside observer, yes, it would take you, say, 20,000 years to reach whatever Alpha Centauri, but that's probably too much. But actually for you, it would only be like 30 or 40 years, because since you're traveling so fast, your time, it gets crunched essentially. So for you, it's only like 30 or 40 years, so, you could have that these, let's say aliens, even with our current understanding of physics, they're just traveling very fast, 1/10 the speed of light. It takes them 30 years to get here, but now you just say, yeah, I'm never going back to my home planet.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. We could do that, right? We could take a big ship, go, it would take 30 years, right? You go suspended animation. Yeah, it's 200,000 years back on Earth, but whatever. You're moving to a new planet, so.
Oh, sorry. I was panicking. My inflatable was gone, but it's around the other side of the boat.
Someone stole your dinghy.
Yeah, that's right. I'd be stranded out here on the boat forever.
But I hope they release a lot more information. I think they can, for sure. You can always release those targeting pod videos. I mean, and if you look, they have the video. When I flew, I would start my tapes. We call them tapes because in the past we used to use actual tape. So you would have to actually turn them off and turn them back on. So right before you go to an engagement, you would turn it on because your tape would run out. But now we have digital tapes. So maybe for the Nimitz, they don't have that much time. It sounds like they had a lot more. But for the more recent, like, the Roosevelt or the Omaha, if there's any planes that had any data from the Omaha, they're going to have their tapes running the whole time. I would love to see the next 20 seconds of that GOFAST. Like the next 20 seconds of that GOFAST video, I could clench it. I wonder what happens, because I know they're merging. They're merging with this thing. So what happens after? What does it do? Is it just continue? Did they follow it? These engagements are long. Like, air engagements they're short, but they're still several minutes. And these things aren't going fast. You look at the GOFAST thing; it's going like 0.8 Mach. Like we can keep up with that. So they could have easily followed this thing for many minutes, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, until they ran out of fuel. So hopefully,
that's the strange thing about, because I've talked about this before, that they're not, like for instance, I know you're going to do the deep dive into the Nimitz, and maybe I can help you with that with some of the people I know. But we do have, looks like we might have some calls coming in, or we may have a caller coming in soon. And the number's up on the screen, 855-472-5483. Bill will be screening, and Bill will be doing a lot of work tonight. I forget exactly the train of thought I was on before I saw this whole screen flash around. Do you remember exactly what I was? Yeah. There was a point I was making, and I apologize for that with the technical issues here.
I guess anyway, as far as I hope they release more information. I mean, that should be the primary goal. It's kind of like sharks with blood in the water. I mean, I kind of get that feeling. I hope that's the case, because they said the F word in front of Mom. They said we have this data. We have 80 cases of, corroborated multiple sensor data. We have 11, we have 18 where it's actually maneuvering crazy, right? So the FLIR video, what I finally finished on is that's a dynamic maneuvering, I think they say in the report. Basically, it's doing maneuvers that we can't understand and we can't explain them. Gimbal as well, just because it has no propulsion, signs of propulsion. As well.
I mean, that's got to be one of the most puzzling things. There's no heat coming off of it. There's no propulsion or no rotor wash or anything like that. We have a caller from Virginia. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hi, thank you, Chris. How are you?
Great. Yeah, welcome.
Thank you for the interview. I just wanted to ask you a question about the radar. And you mentioned on your screen something about 99 and how it wasn't, the lock system wasn't able to lock in on the UFO. And it was saying something like R99. my question is, and I think that means it's jamming the radar signal. So my question is, how often would that occur when you're flying your the jet? I mean, how often would a radar jam like that if you're locking in on like a friendly craft or something? Has that ever happened to you before, where the system failed on you?
Yeah, I mean, it happens. It happens a lot. I wouldn't say all the time, but especially if they're emitting energy. You know, so we have our radars actually hop. You know, they hop frequencies, and that's so they can be against jamming, right? Because you know, the best way to jam is I just put out noise on your frequency. You know, if we're talking right now and I play a loud radio, you know, no one's going to be able to hear what we're talking about. So the radar and it actually hops different frequencies. But what happens is when we're fighting each other, right? Because we're always training against each other. We're always getting co-channel interference, right? So you're always having an F-16 radar is targeting an F-16. The radars will actually interfere. So what we do is we tell our red air, so who's training to be the red fighters, we tell them to lock their radar into a certain frequency, right? And then we just avoid that one. And so it's common to get radar interference, you know, like anything else, like comm interference. You know, you listen to any radio, you hear that stuff in the background. So it's all in the environment as well. So you have all this electromagnetic energy just in the environment as well that the radar has to deal with it. So anytime it's you know. So the point is, it's still weird, right? Because I'm expecting to see a range there if it's from an object, and so the fact that you get jamming, all it means, I think, all I really read from this is that the radar energy that's ending up back into the radar has been modified in some way that the radar doesn't understand. And if the pulse, right, because the radars, they're going to send out pulses in a pulse train. They send out in their frequency, they send it out. It's a coded pulse, right? So they know, hey, my radar, I send out 5 pulses, right? And when it comes back, it has 6 pulses. They're like, jamming, right? All the radar is saying is that it doesn't understand what it's receiving back, and it thinks the signal has been messed with. So it could be you can receive this from co-channel interference, or you can receive it from the actual energy being changed when it comes back. And that's more the impression I get. I don't know if they're actively jamming. You know, Chad Underwood says that. My own feeling from it is that it's just not reflecting off of this stuff, or it's changing it somehow. We're not getting a clean hit bouncing off of something. It's being modified.
Well, anything else, caller?
That's just a lot to take in. No, thank you. Everything you said, because I
hope that answered your question.
But I mean, you're just too. No, I mean you answered it, but I mean that was just a really complicated answer, because I mean I wanted you to just say. I mean, you said at some point in there that you expected it to catch the range, and
yes.
When you said that, but then you also said that it also hops. And I get that, but that's conflicting to me. If you're locked in and you have the range, why would it be skipping? I mean, it shouldn't say R99, right? I mean, it should lock in, tell you the distance, and I mean that's that.
It should, yeah. But it doesn't do it every time. What I'm trying to explain is that the radar energy that went back into the radar was changed. That's what I read from that. So I don't know. Underwood said it's from jamming before. And what's interesting to me is that there's no radar in all of the engagements. You know, Underwood says that he was able to get a lock to get there. But what that tells me is that it's difficult to track, or it breaks the locks.
All right. Well, we have another caller. Thank you so much.
Right.
We have a couple of callers online, and we have 2 coming up from North Carolina. The first one is Rich. Welcome to the show, Rich.
Thank you. This question, can you hear me?
Yes, we got you, Rich.
Thank you. Yeah, this question may be related to what was already mentioned, but in the 9-page report, there was a mention that there was RF that were detected by some of the military sensors that was emanating from, I forgot which of the objects, or maybe all of them. Is there any evidence that you know of that these objects were being controlled externally as drones, or were communicating, like when it was said there's a whole fleet of them? Was there any information that there was electromagnetic going back between the objects themselves?
I haven't seen anything. Yeah, I can hear you. I haven't seen any indication that or any knowledge that they're like communicating with each other. The only thing I could see is like the flashing. If you look at like Jeremy Corbell's the optical video or the triangle video, it seems like there's one flashing, and then there's two others that are just sitting there. And so that seems interesting to me. Like, is that some form of communication actually?
Right.
And then like I just mentioned, RF energy. I looked as well because they don't nail that down anywhere. All I saw is in the UAP report. They just say in a few instances, radar frequency energy is being emitted. So that could be what you're seeing from that 99.9. So you're not getting a range.
Be the interference.
Exactly. So the radar is receiving energy, is what it's saying, right? It's attempting to range this thing, and it can't either with I didn't see a laser firing. I still haven't seen a valid laser ranging either, which is also interesting to me.
Right. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll hear more. Hopefully next month.
I hope so. Yeah. Thanks for calling.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Enjoying the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Rich. Now we have Jonathan from North Carolina. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Hey, thank you. I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
I wanted to get your thoughts on an article I read on the war zone. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. Which article?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and it was basically saying, like, if you exclude some of the more spectacular incidents like the Tic Tac and others where they have these, amazing flight characteristics, but if you take other instances like the Omaha event where you're basically seeing these lights in the sky that are hovering, and his hypothesis was basically these are Russians or the Chinese. And then my question was, when you were flying training missions, did you ever get briefings where people would say, hey, we think it's likely the Chinese or Russians are flying little things out there, just beware of them?
Yeah, I mean, I flew in Europe. I don't remember a lot of specific instances. Most of it would just be international waters, right? So anywhere outside of 12 miles from, land, it's free waters. So all you have to do is put a little Chinese fishing trawler out there, or a Soviet fishing boat, and now you can start picking up all of our information and, listening to radio frequencies. And so I'm sure without a doubt, there's all these fishing boats out there, greater than 12 miles off of land. So I'm sure they're looking for it,
Okay, I was just curious if you'd ever been made aware of that, or if that was something on your all's minds.
Yeah, again, I mean, these they're not messing around. The mission is very intense. Everyone in the military takes it very seriously, especially the pilots, and all the operators on the ships. I mean, yeah, and that's it, right? That's the enemy, Russia, China. If anyone didn't know, that's who we're training against. So I'm pretty sure that's who we are trying to watch. And I'm sure right now our intelligence agencies are at least considering, could this be, Russia or China? But in the report, right, they say it's not. So obviously,
yeah,
they somehow know.
All right, Jonathan, thanks so much for the call.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, next we have John calling from California. Welcome to the show, John. You're on the air.
Thank you, Martin. Hey, Chris. Thanks for coming on today. I really enjoy your YouTube videos and your expert analysis. I just have an opinion question for you because you're Air Force, and you might have been asked this before, and I think you touched on this briefly on one of your videos, but the Navy has come forward with a lot of info over the last, especially since 2017. How come the Air Force, in your opinion, has been pretty silent on UAPs? Do you have an opinion on that? I mean, it just seems like they're the ones that protect our airways, and these things are in the air mainly. So, do you have any opinion on it? It seems the Air Force is awful quiet on this.
It is. Yeah, I mentioned a couple times, right? I think Chris Mellon in his first something he wrote. Oh, it was his expectations for the UAP report. I remember I read that, and he mentioned that the Air Force didn't even start a UAP, process or a UAP reporting process until November 2020. Essentially when Marco Rubio, the Senate Intelligence Act, said, you have to do this report. That's when the Air Force started. And then he mentioned it again in this most recent, his response to UAP report, when he said, bureaucratic issues essentially are hurting it. I've been thinking about that. I have a couple theories, again, just guesses essentially. Well, the first thing is the Navy has amazing radar tech. They really have all the radars. They have, we have airborne, we have AWACS as well. But AWACS is it's an old radar. It's one of those things. It's like Aristotle. We were talking about Martin. He was the AWACS was so successful that we haven't really upgraded it. So we've had the same kind of spinning system. I don't know, 40 years for the AWACS. Where if you look at the Navy, so they have they have unbelievable system. They have Aegis cruisers, the Princeton. This SPY-1 radar, I've worked with that actually. I've tried to attack Aegis cruisers. I was running exercise my last job in NATO, where you try and attack an Aegis cruiser, which is a terrible idea, right? With planes, those things are really amazing, and so they have all these upgraded radar technologies that are actually pointing them out. You look at the Nimitz, they were vectored there from their radar when they had the new upgrade on their Navy radar. So that's one thing, is we just don't have those radar. We don't have those systems.
Yeah.
And the second one is, just to finish, the second thing is, what I've also noticed is, if you look where they're seeing these UAP sightings, it's really around their nuclear reactors. The Theodore Roosevelt, you got to remember, these ships are out there. They're traveling around with nukes, running nukes. You got these submarines under the water with nukes. And then you also have all the ICBMs. Supposedly, Chris Mellon he was really adamant on that, is what's up with the supposed reports of these ICBMs going offline. So I think that may also be another instance, is maybe they're drawn to these nuclear reactors. Maybe that's why they followed the Roosevelt, because they're like, hey, what are these people doing? Literally. And so that's another instance. And the final is, I mentioned in my last video, the Air Force is just a bureaucratic mess right now. The last 10 years ago, we were the best. And then they cut like 20% of our people, and we said, hey, we're going to fire all of our administrators, and we're going to do digital. and it did not work, and it's just been a total train wreck. So honestly, our bureaucratic processes in the Air Force are just a total train wreck. It literally takes like your 4-star general to say, hey, go do this. And a lot of times they can't make it happen. And so they have to keep trying. So I guess those 3 things, if that answers your question.
It certainly does, Chris. Thanks so much for your clarity. Those 3 things were excellent answers, and keep doing the videos, buddy. We really appreciate.
Awesome, man. No, thanks for the support. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. Thank you for that, and for that call. We have Mike coming up at just 1 minute. I wanted to have you, if you would, put out there how people can see your YouTube channel. I do believe I have it in the show notes. If not, it will be in. But
yeah, it's Chris
just
Lehto.
Basically your name, right?
Yeah, I didn't want to try and rebrand or something, so I just went with my name, which worked. So. Yeah, Chris Lehto, Lehto. It's Finnish. It's spelled the wrong way. I was considering changing it. The H comes before the T. Yeah, I'm just gonna try and make. I'm trying to make more videos. Actually, it's the deep analysis videos are just, my brain hurts afterwards. But I'm trying just to get just more, make it more informal, I guess. I just can't do a deep analysis video every week, man. I'll go crazy, So
yeah. Now we have Mike from Long Island on the line. Mike, you're live. Welcome to the show.
How you doing, Chris?
Hi, Mike. Welcome.
I'm the guy. I'm the guy that sent you the Washington D.C. info. From
Oh,
52.
nice. The getting images. What's your? I meant to give you props, but thanks.
Yeah. No, it was great that you actually took a look at that. And as a newbie in the UFO area, there's an awful lot in this field that you can kind of go down rabbit holes on. And I'm just wondering, at the moment, with your military background and as a pilot, you're looking at like the NIM, the three videos, the Nimitz, the GOFAST, the FLIR. But are you prepared, I'll say mentally prepared, to get into other areas? And what I'm thinking of is I would say from the perspective of really weird stuff, there are at least 3 very close encounters with actual beings sighted. And these are in James Fox's documentary, The Phenomenon. There's one in Papua New Guinea back in the late 50s, early 60s, I recall. There's one in Zimbabwe, or Rhodesia, as it was, I think, back then, at a school. Hundreds of, witnesses to this. And then there's another one in an Australian school where there is, again, dozens and dozens, if not 100, eyewitnesses to very close craft, like 50 yards away, stationary, with beings associated with them. Are you prepared to get into that stuff?
I mean, I'm preparing.
Well, may I interject something?
Yes.
I think you are, from what I'm seeing so far, I'm seeing that you're looking more into what you have an expertise in, which is flying and the equipment involved, and not so much about the other things. Maybe I'm talking for you. Maybe I'm totally out of character. But is that where I'm seeing you focus on at this point?
I think it's the area where I can contribute the most.
Right.
I think, and it's the part I know, so from my perspective, just what I believe, I guess at this point, I believe what Fravor says, I believe what he says. I believe what he saw. Yeah. And so I'm really going from that angle, and so I believe that incident happened. But then you start, so yeah, I am reading on the side, I'm reading several books, healing, what are healing stories of abduction, I'm reading that. It's crazy how much evidence there is, but that's kind of the problem, that there's so much evidence. Yes. That it's overwhelming. So like you go to step into this world, I'm just walking along, like I'm this YouTuber, I'm retired, just living with my family. I walk into this UAP kind of discussion. And then you see there's so much evidence behind. It's either a 0 or a 1, it's like, do you believe or not? And at this point, I believe in the Fravor stuff. I believe in the Tic Tac. The Omaha stuff is very compelling. So I'm just focusing on that, and I have my email. I just, whatever the aliens again, they can reach me at my email. They know my YouTube channel.
Yeah. We have one more call. Thanks for that call. Just to let you know, I was the first one to interview. Thank you. I was the first one to interview Chris Mellon, and on this topic, and it was very interesting. And basically, Chris and I were communicating a lot. And there was some, I want to say there was some rabbit holes that he could have fallen into in the very beginning, because it doesn't matter how brilliant you are. and what you know, you can still fall into these things if you haven't been around it long enough. So, I'll offer this to you, of course. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to help. In regards to
excellent.
the rabbit hole,
464 shows. Because we were talking before, I kind of wanted to ask how you've done it for so long. I mean, I want to interview you, I guess.
Well,
we don't have time, but
thank you. Yeah, you're welcome to. I'd be glad to come on. You can interview me. That'd be fun. So we have one more caller. We have Rob from Florida. Rob, welcome to the show.
Good evening, Martin. It's great to talk to you. And I was just in Maine enjoying your wonderful seafood. Colonel Lehto, welcome to the UAP community.
Yeah,
and
thank you. Welcome.
Oh, you bet. The question I have, Commander Fravor stated that the minute they painted that target with their radar, that they immediately were jammed. And the Wizzo in his back seat, are they able to determine what frequencies they were being jammed with or receiving at that time?
So we couldn't tell. So the only thing, so the radars are programmed with different key processing, right? So they'll know. I was actually an electronic attack expert in the aggressors, so I was like really deep into the beeps and squeaks. But basically, the radar, it will have cues, built into the processing to say, okay, if you see this, it means they're trying to use a range gate pull off on you. They're trying to use a program to trick your radar in range. That's one way. You tell the radar, hey, I'm not 10 miles away from you, I'm 20 miles. And then now your radar is looking in the wrong spot. Or it changes an angle. So it'll say, hey, I'm not this angle from you, I'm this angle. And so the radars, they're programmed, when they see that, it trips it. But they're not that smart, especially not back in 2004. So I think what it means is the radar does not understand the pulse that came back. The pulse that came back was changed. It was either changed on purpose by the object, to denote like they jammed me, an act of war. I would jam a Russian aircraft if I saw it, but jamming, probably not actually. But jamming would mean that it may have just done it by accident or just by the nature. If you tried to lock water, it would give you a weird response. So I think that's it. You can't confirm that it is jamming. When they say I was jammed, what I actually read as an electronic attack expert is that the radar pulse was changed. That's all I know for sure. It's very interesting that there's no radar lock in any of the videos, and there's no laser ranging. Because if I don't have a radar lock, but I have a targeting pod lock, man, I'm squeezing that trigger to get a laser. I'm shooting a laser at this thing for sure to get the range. Because you're basically, if you don't know the range, you feel as a pilot like I'm missing something. Something's missing. Something very critical is missing, is the range. So that's all I would say is the energy has been changed. We don't know if it's on purpose. The radar, maybe it says it's on purpose, but it's really just some processing in the radar that could be incorrect.
Well, we are at the end of our show. So, Rob, thank you for the call.
Oh, you bet,
right.
Martin. Always a pleasure.
Right.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank
Rob.
you.
Sorry, hope that answered it.
Yeah, so we are out of time. So thank you so much, Chris. It's been a real pleasure. Let's keep in touch. And again, I'd be glad to help you with whatever questions you have that I can help you with. I'd be very happy to.
Excellent.
And I hope a lot of people check out your videos, and I hope you keep having the energy to do more because they're really great. So
yeah, I appreciate all the support from everybody. I mean, it does help, and yeah, that it does help. So I'll continue doing it. If they're excited about it, then it does rub off. It rubs off the excitement, and it is tough getting like all the haters, but whatever. I haven't gotten many lately, so I'm fine.
Yeah. All right, and next week we have Chris Spark on. I said that by accident last week, but I had the wrong Chris when I was talking. So here we are out in Maine, and thanks so much for joining the show, and we'll see you next week. And remember to keep your eyes to the sky.